I used to measure love in small, quiet ways. In how quickly my son returned my calls. In whether he noticed when I cut my hair. In the way he used to say, "Mother, you're the only one who understands me." For years, those moments were my proof, my worth. And when those moments began to disappear, so did I. I was always just mother. In my home, that was enough. More than enough. It was who I was. I wore that title like a crown and a responsibility. Every meal I cooked, every late night I stayed awake waiting for Saad to come home safely. Every sacrifice I made, I never questioned it. That's what mothers do. We give, and we give, and we give, until giving becomes our identity. Saad was my only son, my heart outside my body. From the moment I first held him, I knew my life would revolve around his. And it did. I learned his favorite foods before he could even speak. I memorized his moods before he understood them himself. I celebrated his successes as if they were my own, and in many ways, they were. When he got his first job, I cried more than he did. When he bought his first car, I prayed over it longer than he drove it. When he told me he was ready to get married, I smiled, because that's what I was supposed to do. Her name was Sana. She was everything I could have asked for. Educated, polite, soft-spoken, beautiful in a quiet way. The kind of girl who lowered her eyes when she spoke, who said "Auntie" with respect, who brought sweets the first time she visited. I liked her. No, I wanted to like her. But somewhere, beneath the surface, there was a feeling I didn't want to name. Fear. Not of her, but of losing him. The wedding was a blur of lights, laughter, and people telling me, "Congratulations, you've gained a daughter." But all I could feel was that I was losing my son. Not in a dramatic way. Not overnight. Just slowly, quietly, piece by piece. At first, it was small things. He stopped sitting with me after dinner. He started eating in their room. Our long evening conversations turned into quick check-ins. "Mother, everything okay?" "Yes, son. Everything is fine." But everything wasn't fine. I just didn't know how to say it without sounding selfish. Then came the phone calls. He used to call me from work every day. "Mother, what should I eat tonight?" "Mother, I'm tired." "Mother, did you take your medicine?" After marriage, those calls became fewer, then shorter, then sometimes non-existent. I would sit with my phone in my hand, staring at his name, wondering if I should call, wondering if I would be interrupting, wondering if I still had the same place in his life. Sana wasn't unkind. She never raised her voice, never disrespected me, but there was a distance, a wall I couldn't explain. She had her own way of doing things, her own rhythm, her own space, and Saad fit into that space so easily. Too easily. One evening, I made his favorite dish, chicken karahi, the way he loved it. Extra tomatoes, less spice. I waited for him to come home. When he did, he walked straight past me. "Sana, did you eat?" he asked. "I ordered pasta," she replied. "I'll eat that with you." I stood in the kitchen, holding the spoon. "I made dinner," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Oh," he said, "I'll eat later." He didn't. That night, I sat alone at the dining table. The food grew cold, and something inside me cracked. I started noticing everything after that. The way he laughed more with her. The way he shared things with her first. The way he defended her. Even when I hadn't said anything. I became hyper-aware. Hypersensitive. Every silence felt like rejection. Every delay felt like neglect. Every change felt like loss. And I did what many do when they feel invisible. I tried harder. I woke up earlier. Cooked more. Cleaned more. I tried to insert myself into their lives. "Saad, should I iron your shirt?" "Sana, do you want tea? Are you both going somewhere?" "I can come too." Sometimes they said yes. Mostly they didn't. And slowly, something dangerous began to grow inside me. Resentment. Not loud. Not explosive. Quiet. Heavy. Persistent. One afternoon, I overheard them talking. "Mother gets upset over small things," Sana said softly. "I know," Saad replied. "Just ignore it. Ignore it." Those two words echoed in my chest like a hollow drum. Ignore it.
Ignored me.
That night, I cried in a way I hadn't cried in years. Not loudly, not dramatically, just silently into my pillow so no one would hear. Because I didn't want to be too much. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. And I became a stranger in my own home. I stopped speaking unless spoken to. Stopped asking questions. Stopped expecting. Because every expectation hurt. One morning, I caught my reflection in the mirror. I looked tired, not physically, emotionally, like someone who had been waiting too long for something that wasn't coming. And for the first time, I asked myself a question I had never asked before. Who am I outside of being his mother? The answer scared me, because I didn't know. I had spent so many years building my identity around Saad that when he stepped into his own life, I had nothing left to stand on. No hobbies. No friendships. No dreams of my own.
Just him.
And now that him had shifted, I felt lost. That day, something changed. Not dramatically. Not instantly. But quietly, like a seed being planted. I stopped waiting for his call. Instead, I called an old friend. We hadn't spoken in years. Is that really you? She laughed. We talked for an hour. About everything and nothing. And when I hung up, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time, light. The next day, I went out. Alone. Not for groceries. Not for errands. Just to walk.
To sit in a park.
To watch people who didn't know me, didn't expect anything from me. And for the first time in months, I breathed. Just silently into my pillow so no one would hear. Because I didn't want to be too much. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. And I became a stranger in my own home. I stopped speaking unless spoken to. Stopped asking questions. Stopped expecting. Because every expectation hurt. One morning, I caught my reflection in the mirror. I looked tired. Not physically. Emotionally. Like someone who had been waiting too long for something that wasn't coming. And, for the first time, I asked myself a question I had never asked before. Who am I or outside of being his mother? The answer scared me. Because I didn't know. I had spent so many years building my identity around Saad that when he stepped into his own life, I had nothing left to stand on. No hobbies. No friendships. No dreams of my own. Just him. And now that him had shifted, I felt lost. That day, something changed. Not dramatically. Not instantly. But quietly. Like a seed being planted. I stopped waiting for his call. Instead, I called an old friend. We hadn't spoken in years. Is that really you? She laughed. We talked for an hour. About everything and nothing. And when I hung up, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time.
Light.
The next day, I went out alone. Not for groceries. Not for errands.
Just to walk.
To sit in a park. To watch people who didn't know me, didn't expect anything from me. And for the first time in months, I breathed. I started doing small things. Reading books I had once loved. Trying new recipes, not for approval, but for myself. Watching shows I enjoyed. Reconnecting with pieces of me I had forgotten. At first, it felt strange. Almost wrong. Like I was neglecting my duty. But slowly, it began to feel right. One evening, Saad noticed. You've been busy lately, he said. Yes, I replied calmly. I have been. What are you doing? Living, I said, with a small smile. He looked surprised. And, for the first time, I didn't feel the need to explain. Something shifted after that. Not in him.
In me.
I stopped measuring my worth by how much attention I received. By how often he sat with me. By whether he chose my food over hers. I stopped keeping score. Stopped comparing. Stopped waiting. And something unexpected happened. I became lighter.
Kinder.
More peaceful. Sanaa started talking to me more. Not because I demanded it, but because I wasn't silently pressuring her anymore. I wasn't watching her every move, analyzing every word. I gave her space, and in that space, something grew. Respect. One afternoon, she sat beside me. Mother, she said softly, can you teach me that karahi recipe? I looked at her. Really looked at her. Not as someone who had taken my place, but as someone who was finding her own. Of course, I said. And for the first time it didn't hurt. Saad began to notice too. Not my absence, but my presence. A different kind.
Calm.
Grounded.
Whole.
One night, he sat with me after dinner. Just like old times. Mother, he said, you seem happier. I am, I replied.
Why?
I paused. Then I said something that surprised even me. Because I stopped expecting you to complete me. He looked confused. You were never meant to carry that weight, son. I added gently. There was silence. Not uncomfortable, just real. I'm sorry, he said quietly. For what? For not being there the same way. I smiled. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. And I meant it, because I finally understood something that took me years to learn. Love doesn't disappear when it changes shape. It just asks us to grow with it. I am still his mother. That will never change. But I am also me. A woman with her own thoughts. Her own life. Her own worth. Not measured by attention. Not defined by presence. Not dependent on anyone else's validation. I still cook his favorite meals sometimes. And sometimes he eats them. Sometimes he doesn't. And that's okay. Because I no longer sit at the table waiting to feel valued. I bring my own sense of worth with me. And that has made all the difference. And that has made all the difference. The house didn't change overnight. The same walls stood where they always had. The same kitchen, the same dining table, the same quiet corners that once echoed with my loneliness. But something inside those walls felt different. Because something inside me was different. I stopped listening for footsteps. That used to be my habit. Waiting to hear Saad walk through the door, measuring his mood by the way he dropped his keys, the way he called out or didn't. Before, my entire evening depended on that moment. Now it didn't. One evening, I was sitting in the living room, reading a book. Not pretending to read. Not staring at the same page while thinking about what I had lost. Actually reading. Losing myself in words that had nothing to do with my life. When the front door opened, I heard Saad and Sana walk in. They were laughing. A soft, easy kind of laughter. Once, that sound would have pierced something inside me. I would have wondered, why not with me? But that evening, I just turned the page. Mother? Saad called. Yes, I replied, without looking up immediately. He stepped into the room. You're reading? I smiled slightly. Yes. What book? I showed him the cover. He nodded, a little surprised, like he was seeing something new. And maybe he was. Sana walked in behind him. She paused for a moment, watching me. There was something in her expression I hadn't noticed before. Not distance. Not discomfort. Something softer. Something like curiosity. You didn't ask how our day was, Saad said lightly. I looked at him. I assumed you would tell me if you wanted to. He blinked, almost caught off guard. Then he smiled. It was good, he said. We went out after work. That sounds nice, I replied.
And it did.
Genuinely. That night, I didn't wait for them to join me for dinner. I ate when I was hungry. I cleaned up after myself. I went to my room, not with sadness, but with peace. Days passed. Then weeks. And something unexpected began to happen. They started coming to me, not because I called them, not because I hovered, but because there was space now. Space that didn't feel heavy. Space that didn't demand. One Sunday afternoon, Sana knocked on my door. Mother, are you busy? I closed my book. No, come in. She walked in slowly, holding her phone. I wanted your opinion on something. I gestured for her to sit. She showed me a picture, curtains for their room. What do you think? She asked. It was such a small thing. But it wasn't. Because she chose to ask me. They're beautiful, I said. But maybe a lighter color would make the room feel bigger. She nodded thoughtfully. I was thinking the same. She stayed a little longer. Not long, but longer than before. And I didn't hold on to it too tightly. I didn't analyze it after she left. I didn't turn it into something bigger than it was. I just appreciated it. And let it be. Saad began sitting with me again sometimes. Not every day. Not like before, but enough. And this time, I didn't cling to those moments. I didn't fear losing them, because I wasn't depending on them to feel whole. One evening, we were sitting together in silence. A comfortable silence. The kind that doesn't need to be filled. "Mother," he said suddenly, "do you remember when I used to call you from work every day?" I smiled faintly. Yes. I don't know why I stopped. I looked at him. "You didn't stop," I said gently. "Your life just expanded." He frowned slightly. "Still, I should have made more time." "Maybe," I said. "But I should have made more space too." He looked at me, really looked this time. And I could see it. Understanding. Not complete, but growing. "I never wanted you to feel left out," he said quietly. "I know," I replied. "And I never wanted to compete with your life," I added. That word, compete, hung in the air between us. Because that's what it had felt like before. A silent, painful competition between a mother and a wife. For the same person. For the same attention. For the same love. But love was never meant to be divided like that. It was never meant to be a limited resource. It only felt that way when I was trying to hold it too tightly. "I think I made things harder," he said. "We all did," I replied softly. "And we're all learning." Sana joined us a few minutes later. She sat beside Saad, close but not distant from me. There was no tension. No invisible line dividing us. Just three people sharing a moment. "Mother," she said after a while, "we're thinking of redecorating the living room." I raised an eyebrow playfully. "Without me?" She smiled. "No, with you." It wasn't a grand gesture. It didn't erase the past, but it mattered, because it was real. That night, as I lay in bed, I thought about everything that had changed. Not just around me, but within me. Did I used to believe that love meant being needed? That if I wasn't at the center of his world, I was losing him? That if his attention shifted, my value decreased? But now, I see it differently. Love isn't about being someone's whole world. It's about being a part of it, without losing your own. I am no longer waiting to be chosen. I have already chosen myself. And in doing that, I didn't lose my son. I found a healthier way to love him. I didn't lose my place. I redefined it. And, perhaps most importantly, I didn't lose myself anymore. Now, when he calls me mother, I hear love. Not obligation. Not habit. Just love. And when I sit at the table, I don't wait to feel valued. I already know I am. Because my worth is no longer measured by their attention. It lives quietly, steadily, within me. And still there are nights when the house goes quiet in a way that feels too familiar. Nights when I hear their laughter from behind a closed door, and for a brief moment, my heart forgets everything I've learned. It remembers the old ache, the old longing, the version of love that needed to be seen, to be felt. But now I don't run from that feeling. I sit with it, gently, like you would sit beside an old wound that no longer bleeds but still remembers. One such night, I found myself standing outside his door. Not to listen, not to interrupt, just standing there. Because something inside me missed him. Not the man he is now, but the little boy he used to be. The one who would run into my arms after school. The one who couldn't sleep without holding my hand. The one who believed I could fix anything. I raised my hand to knock. Then I stopped. Not because I wasn't allowed, but because I understood something deeper now. He wasn't mine to hold on to anymore. He was mine to love from where he stood. I lowered my hand, and as I turned away, the door opened. "Mother?" His voice. Soft. Familiar. Still my son. I paused, searching for words I didn't need anymore. I was just passing by. He looked at me for a moment, then stepped aside. "Come in." The room felt different, not because it had changed, but because I had. Sana smiled at me from the bed. "Mother, we were just talking about you." I raised an eyebrow. "Good things, I hope." She laughed softly. "Always." Saad sat beside me. Close. Not out of duty. Not out of guilt. Just because he wanted to. For a few minutes we talked. Nothing important. Nothing life-changing.
Just small, simple words.
But this time they were enough. As I got up to leave, he held my hand. Just for a second. But it was the same hand that once clung to mine when he was afraid of the dark. "Good night, Mother," he said. "Good night, son." I walked back to my room slowly, not because I was heavy, but because I wanted to hold on to the moment just a little longer. And when I closed my door, I didn't cry out of pain. I cried out of release. Because I finally understood something my heart had been resisting for so long. I was never losing him. I was just being asked to love him differently, not as the center of my world, but as a beautiful part of it. And somehow, that love felt deeper, quieter, stronger. I lay down, staring at the ceiling, with tears still warm on my cheeks. But for the first time, they didn't feel heavy. They felt like healing. Because I had spent so long asking, why doesn't he need me the same way? When the real question was, why did I stop needing myself? Now I know. And now, I am no longer waiting outside closed doors. I am no longer measuring silence as rejection. I am no longer shrinking myself to fit into someone else's attention. I am whole, even in the quiet, even in the distance, even in the change. And if one day he needs me again, not out of habit, not out of obligation, but out of love, I will be here, not empty, not waiting, but full. Because I didn't just raise a son. I learned how to raise myself all over again. And that is a kind of love no one can take away. So tonight, I close my eyes not as someone who is forgotten, but as someone who finally remembered herself.